So we're going to add a UI to our project so that we can actually see how many objects we're collecting and how the enemy objects are affecting our health. So to do that, you need to go to Game Object, UI, Text. We'll delete the event system bit that's come in by just right-clicking and press delete. So you should have Canvas and Text. Now what we'll do is we will just click here and call this count text. We'll duplicate it and rename that one health text. Duplicate that one and call it win text. And what you can see is when you double click on the canvas, the actual UI is huge compared to the 3D scene, which is all the way down here. But that is actually how it should look. And what you can see is actually the text appear here in the bottom left corner of that big window. So what we'll do is we'll just click on count text and we can call that one score in here. And we'll just move it up a little bit because they're all the text is on top of each other at the moment. We'll call health text just health. Drag that one up here, and then the win text, we'll just call that win. So if we hit, well, actually what you can see here is we can actually position the text. So if we click on count, if you click on count text and use this icon here to push it in the bottom left corner, and we'll just do that for all of them. And if we hit play, let's see what happens. So we've got a camera view here, and what you can see is that the when we resize the window, we've got our text sort of down here in the bottom left corner. The camera does actually, looking at this now, one of the things that we haven't done is if we hit play, so far what we've actually been doing is, if I go back to my export, so far when we've been looking at what our game's doing, we've been looking through the scene view, but actually it's important that we can sort of save our game and see all of our movement through the camera view. And at the moment, when I move my character, just hit play again, the camera view is actually, it's not moving with character, so it's actually very hard to see what the character's doing. We can easily fix that by just taking the main camera and just dragging it into exports so that it's a child of exports. And now when we hit play, the camera should actually move with our character, although actually our character seems really, really far away. So what we'll do is we'll actually just take our camera by clicking on it here, and we'll just position it until we're happy with that, so it's a little bit closer to our character. So what you can see is you've got your score coming up in the bottom left, and now when you hit play and you move your character, you can actually follow it like so. Now, one of the things that you can see is, although the text is there, nothing's actually happening when we run through objects. To change that, what we need to do is click on our exports, and you can see these different fields here. What you need to do is drag the text into those relevant fields. So count text, you drag that into count text, health text, and so forth. Okay, so now what should happen is if we hit play, and we move forward and collect a sphere, we see our score go up to 1, and similarly if we collect another sphere, it goes up to 2. I think we're going to add something to the script so we sort of start on a certain number of health points, but what you'll see is when you run into the cube it goes down to 2, and then if you run into the cube again, so you start with 3 health points. When you run into it again, it goes down to 1. If we run into the sphere again, we've got a score of 3. And although this is something that we'll have to look at later, the text winner appears, because when you get 3, you become a winner. And I don't know this will now work, but yes, if you hit the cube again, it goes, you're dead. So we've got these messages appearing when you've collected all the objects, or when you've unfortunately hit the enemy object too many times. Now, it would be nice to be able to customize potentially how many collectibles you need to collect to win, or how many enemies you can interact with before you die. And I'm just going to show you how to do that. Now, we haven't actually looked at the code so far, we've just pulled a script in, but I think it's a good time just to open up our script just to get a little insight into what's going on behind the scenes. So if we go back to scripts and we find our player controller and double click it, your viewer might not look like this, but essentially you should be able to see the code somewhere when you double click it. And what you can see is we've got our script here, which makes our character move, which also allows us to collect objects and allows us to have our health reduced when we hit enemy objects. Now, we're not going to go into it in great detail now, but what I am going to do is going to show you how to make it so that you can change the number of objects you collect and the number of health points that you have in the Unity project itself. So at the moment, when we go back to our Unity project and we click export, the only variable that we can actually change is the speed of our character, and we can do that here. If we go back into the code, if you go to the very, very top, you'll see here that we've got some things which are public. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to make our win count appear in the menu by putting public, and again our health by typing public, and then you need to Control S to save. And now hopefully we go back into our Unity project. Yeah, you can see that now here we can actually edit the variables ourselves. So we could say that we start with 6 health points, or that in order to win we need to collect 5 objects. So now we can actually change those variables here, which is quite handy. And another thing is, if you want to change the text that's appearing, i.e. winner or you're dead, you can do that by going back into the code. And if you just scroll through, we don't want to touch any of that, but here you've got win text winner, so you can change that to say whatever you like when you win. Or in here you can you can just change you've lost, for example, and when you Control S, that will mean that actually those texts are changing in your game, which is quite a handy thing to know. But hopefully now you've got all the basics that you need to create your own basic game in groups now.